What is the Grand Coalition of the Status Quo?
Well, that is a phrase from John C. Rao in his book Black Legends. And this is an attempt to provide a spiritual explanation to the various forces that array against the church from the city of man. Um, Throughout history, various Catholics have posited various conspiracy theories, which are more or less true depending on what's going on. So they say, oh, well, the Masons are together and they're working together, or the communists are together. And I think that what's really clear, though, I think when you think about it, when you read the book of the Apocalypse, you see that it's really the fallen angels, the demons are the conspiracy, is that they are pulling the strings in all these different places, and all of these different actors are just puppets. I had a friend who converted to Catholic. He was actually a liberal Jew who became Catholic. And one of the proofs that he saw for the Catholic Church was that it seemed like every single group or organization out there was all against the Catholic Church. It's like
Hmm.
everybody, whether or not they disagree with each other, they totally different. Like we have the Muslims on the one hand, we have the communists over here with the feminists. We have the Eastern Orthodox are fighting on these similar principles against this very thing, the Roman papacy. Why are they all sort of arrayed together? It's like, what is this? Well, that's the
Yeah.
grand coalition of the status quo. That's this sort of conspiracy of these fallen angels. These people are not coordinating this. It's the demons, it's the fallen angels who are pulling all these strings and trying to get all these puppets to do their bidding against the Roman Catholic Church. Um, so it's really quite remarkable when you look at that. The grand coalition of the status quo, it refers to all these different forces who disagree with each other, but they all agree on one thing, and that is not Rome. An example of this is during the Anglican Reformation. Excuse me. The Anglican Protestant Revolt was when Parliament and the king, who both disagreed with each other, they both agreed on one thing, not Rome. So they're not actually agreeing on a positive principle of it's this. They're just agreeing on it's not this. And that that you could even talk about all the different Protestant groups. There's 48,000 sects now, and they all disagree with each other, but they all agree on not Rome. Well, that is an example of this grand coalition. Reason it's the status quo is because it's really fallen human nature resisting transformation of all things in Christ, which can only come about through the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Mass, the divine grace communicated to the world through the church. And so it is a desire to maintain that status quo. Another example that to me was very enlightening in my research in this book was the pagan concept of the Pontifex Maximus, that the Roman emperor is the high priest of the Roman religion. And this is what helps inform the tensions between East and West, and ultimately the various Greek schisms and the Eastern Orthodox schism, is that the emperor understood himself as the Pontifex Maximus, as that he was sort of a bishop of bishops. And this is trying to maintain the status quo. It's trying to maintain this pagan understanding and resisting transformation of all things in Christ. And so that's why we see, and Newman says it, I have quotations from Newman that he also sees that he sees how all the heretics work together, even though they disagree with each other. It doesn't make sense. The only way that makes sense is if we have this spiritual understanding, because we see it in the book of the Apocalypse. We see the land beast and the sea beast working together, and these various forces working together and arrayed against. Why did the nations conspire and the peoples took counsel together against the Lord and His Christ? We see it in the time of Christ. We have these various Jewish sects, which all disagree with each other. We see how violently they disagree in the book of Acts, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and yet they come together against Christ. And also Pontius Pilate, and also Judas. We have all these different factors that could have coalesced together, and it's because it's being orchestrated by an evil will. And so
Right.
I think that's what I think is helps us. Well, on the one hand, we avoid harmful or erroneous conspiracy theories, where we're kind of sort of putting all the blame on one group of people, and
Right.
some of these people are involved, yes, but the answer is not to ultimately scapegoat these people or that people or whatever, but to fight directly against the fallen angels and
Right.
liberate these poor souls from being puppets to the demons. So liberating them, and that's the work of the church ultimately. And so when we have this type of a spiritual understanding, we can really fight for Christendom in souls and society. So we don't get trapped in a sort of a very nationalistic frame of reference, whether that's World War II things or America or Whig history or all sorts of versions of that. But we also don't sort of naively think that we can just sort of conciliate with the world, the flesh, and the devil. No, we have to be waging eternal war against that.
Right. And yeah, it's a good thing to reflect on even in our own spiritual lives. Is like how much are we often trying to do like anything but conversion? Like I feel like that's so much of the domination of psychology in our world, and like therapy, and not to bash that where it really is accurate or useful for some people, but it's just like anything but actual conversion, anything but actually like becoming dependent on Christ. And we do that in so many ways, so many crutches that we use in our lives, or, so many debates that we have, or worldly ways of thinking that we have in the church. Like it's like anything but actually, the supernatural, anything but relying on grace.
Yeah. It's easy to blame people for various things. It's easy to blame the government, easy to blame church leaders who have failed us or whatever, but it's harder to have a spiritual perspective and then think, what do I need to do to change myself and be converted more fully so that I can be a part of the solution, be the change you want to see in the world?
Right.